pictures on the. We can show the pictures on the screen, so it's so smooth that way. I don't know if we're always familiar with sukkahs that cover with the four walls and the schach, but the Gemara is discussing the ways to make a sukkah like in Israel, that you have it because of the hot weather. You just have it open as much as you can. So I know that where I go in Israel, sometimes you can see people having sukkah with a half a wall, and they use good asik and good loved and all that stuff. But anyway, okay, we are going to begin on Daf Vav Amud Sheni. Let's make it big, and it's about it's exactly 3 lines from the bottom. We learned yesterday that there was a machlokes between the Tanakam and Rav Shimon, but basically the Chachamim hold that all you need is 2 walls, and the third wall could be how big? A tefach. So the question is, where do you put that tefach wall? So we're going to learn like here. This is the picture that you put the tefach wall any one of the sides. That's called the doifin hayotzi, the outer walls. So it could be you could put the tefach, this post over here, to be your third wall on the outer or over here, and we'll make it a kosher sukkah. You just put schach on it, and then you have 3 walls. So that's the first opinion. We're going to have 3 opinions of what to do over here. So let's learn the first opinion. Where do you put that tefach? Rav said, "Mamidoy keneged hayotzi." You put it at the outer wall, either one outer wall or the other outer wall. Now that was Rav's opinion. Amalei Rav Kahana Rav Asi Rav. So Rav Kahana and Rav Asi, who are the students of Rav, asked the question to Rav. We have a better way to put that extra tefach post. V'yamideno keneged roish hatur. Put it on an angle so you get both walls. That's what Daf Zayin. So let's take a look. What they're saying over here is that they're saying is put it like on an angle. That's the way I thought it meant to be. You put it on the diagonal from the 2 walls. So now it could be considered 2 walls going this way and going this way. And then you have 4 walls. Isn't that the better way to do it? Or the way they show it in the pictures. The way they show it in the pictures is that here the angle and if you medayik in Rashi's words, he learned that you just slant the post. You put it on the doifin hayotze and you just slant it. And isn't that better? Because that looks like you have 4 walls. Anyway, those are 2 ways to learn what the Gemara's question is. Shosik Rav was silent and he didn't pay attention. It doesn't make sense. All you need is 3 walls. You don't have to put it on an angle or anything like that. You just leave it in the corner there, nicely flush against one of the walls, and that's good enough. Sometimes when the rabbi doesn't answer you, it's not a valid question. And that's the case over here. Itmanami Omer Shmuel Mishmei Levi. Shmuel, who is usually arguing against Rav, he said the same thing in the name of Levi. So basically, Shmuel said the same thing, and the Beis Medrash to say the same thing, that you put it on the outer wall and you leave it flush against one of those walls. Now we're going to learn another opinion of what to do. So let's see the picture. So till now, you learned this opinion. The opinion of Rav, which is you put it flush against one of the walls. You can put it on this side or that side. Now we're learning opinion called Rav Simon. And what he's going to say is just move it a little bit off the wall over here and put it a little bit less than 3 tefachim away from the wall. What do you gain? Because if you count the less than 3 tefachim over here, and this post is going to be wider than a tefach. It's going to be a inch more than a tefach, right? That's called a tefach shoichik. A laughing tefach means a wide tefach, means a drop more than a tefach. So if you add 3 over here, and then the 1 over here, what do you get? 4. Well, 4 is the distance of a normal wall, is most of a wall, because a wall technically has to be 7 tefachim. So what you have a wall here, 4 tefachim. Now, how do you have a wall of 4 tefachim? Because you say the concept of lavud. So that means we view this as if it's filled up, even though it has an airspace, but anything less than 3 tefachim is considered, we view it as if it's filled up. And therefore, this 3 is filled up. Plus 1, you get number 4. That's it. That's Rav Simon's idea. Rav Simon, v'teimer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Oma, oiselei tefach soichek. You make a laughing tefach, means a wide tefach. Uma midoi, bepochas mishloisha tvachim samach ladoifim. You put it less than 3 tvachim next to the wall. So taken together, 3 tvachim, almost 3 tvachim, plus the 1 tefach, you get 4. That's most of a wall, because a wall should be 7 tefach. So now you have a wall that's 4 tvachim. And then he says, the chol hapachas mishloisha samach ladoifim kalav adamim. Anything that's less than 3 tvachim next to a wall is as if it's filled up, as if it's connected to the wall. So therefore, it's as if you have a wall of 4 tvachim. So 2 opinions what to do with that post, that 1 tefach post. One opinion was Rav's opinion. You put it flush against the wall. And Rav Simon's opinion is that you put it a little bit, a distance away from the wall, 3 tvachim away from the wall. That's that. But now, till now, we're talking about walls that are perpendicular to each other. Now comes the Gemara and says, Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, let's talk about another type of sukkah. Sukkah hoasuya kamavui, if it's made with just 2 walls, just opposite each other, not perpendicular to each other, but just opposite each other. So Rav Yehuda is going to be of the opinion you could put the 3rd wall he's similar to Rav, right? But he says you could put it on this side or you could put it on this side. Any yotze you could put it at. You could put the post anywhere. That is Rav Yehuda's opinion. Comes along Rav Simon, who, if you remember, Rav Simon said before, you always put it a distance away from the wall. He says not only that, 1 tefach post is not going to be enough. Here you're going to need a 4 tefach post. A 4 tefach post. 4 tefach plus 3, you're going to get 7. You're going to need a 4 because the walls are distanced from each other. Let's see what the Gemara is going to say. Amar Rav Yehuda made a new statement. Sukkah asuya kamavi, a sukkah that's made like a mavi. That means you have 2 walls opposite each other. Kishera, that's kosher. But the oise tefach, that 1 wall tefach, mamidai l'chol ruach sheyirtza. You put it at any part you want. You can put it anywhere you want. It's kosher, because that will be the 3rd wall. Rav Simon says, "V'teimer Rav Yeshua ben Levi," in the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Some say Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says it. Oiseloi pas abo mashu. You have to make a boards that are 4 tefachim and a little bit more. Umamidoi pachas mishloisha samach l'doifin, and you put it close next to 3, less than 3 next to the wall. V'chol pachas mishloisha samach l'doifin kalav adamim. Anything less than 3 close to the wall is considered as if it's filled up. So exactly as you see in the picture. Here it's 3 tvachim, almost 3 tvachim. I wrote 3, but it's almost 3. This is 4 and a little bit. 4 and a little bit together with this is a total of 7. Now you have a wall that's 7 tvachim, 7 tvachim. So you can already guess the next Gemara's question. The next Gemara's question is, why over here in this case he required you to have the board should be 4 tefachim and a mashu, dalet umashu, right? In order to get to the number 7. And in this case, Reb Simon said, all you need is a board of 1 tefach, and you'll get the total will be 4, and 4 is already roiv, and that's good enough. So in other words, why is over here when the walls are set up this way, 1 is good enough, and over here, when the walls are opposite each other, you need actually a board of 4. That's Gemara's question. The Gemara says,
it can have something to do with the fact that the other 2 walls are connected, and here they're not connected at all.
The idea of the whole business of these walls, it has to be visible walls. You have to be nicker that they're walls. When you have it perpendicular to each other, so then when you add that 3rd wall, you can tell that it's 3 walls. But imagine in this case, if you just had a 1 post over here, it wouldn't be so nicker, visible, that it's a wall there. Therefore, he required more. He required you 4 and a mashahu. That's exactly the Gemara's thing.
But Bernard, so you have 2 kosher walls connected, and then what do you do with the 3rd one? What concept do you use to connect it?
Okay, so love it, right? Love it. You put it less than 3 here, right over
those
here.
Those are 2. Yeah, those are 2 connected. What about that? How do you connect the third one? You need 3 walls. Everyone holds you need 3 walls.
Oh, but they don't. You have 3 walls in the sukkah, but not all 3 have to be touching each other, right? So you'll have. You're right. In this case, they're like a movoi.
There's a gap.
There's a
big
gap.
gap.
Absolutely agreed. But if you look from a distance, it looks like when you put the schach on it, it'll connect it somehow. You can have schach that's going to be covering it. But you're right; they're not connected. Like in this case, they look like that you can drive a line from all of them, and probably that's the reason why in this case he only requires 1, and in this case he needs 4. And that's the Gemara's question. Why over there the Kamri Sagi Tepach Soiche? Over there, you say it's enough with 1 tefach. And over here, when they're opposite each other, the walls are opposite each other. You need a board that's 4 tefachim. So the Gemara says, like we're trying to get at. Hasam over there, the ikishtei defanis. You have 2 walls, and the Gemara uses the language kihil chasam. According to the halacha, it means like you can tell it's walls. So then, sagi lebe tefach soichik. Then all you need is the board to be 1 tefach. Hacha over here, the leka shtei defanos, that there is no 2 walls, they're just opposite each other. So then we say, pas abba, if there's a complete board that's 4 tefachim, and then it works, yes. Eloi, if you don't have that, loy, then it's not going to be a kosher sukkah. So, okay, so we have 2 very important opinions about making that 3rd wall. One is Rav's opinion, and which Rav Yehuda's opinion, which is actually you just put the board flush against the wall. And then there's Rav Simon's opinion. He says that we want to create a 3rd wall through lavud. Now we're going to learn a 3rd opinion. And this 3rd opinion is Rava. So Rava is going to say, and we can take a look at the picture, he says, in order to kosher that 3rd wall, you have to make our very own Erevin Tzuras at Pesach. You cut the board in half, you put a half a tefach over here and a half a tefach over here, and you make a Tzuras HaPesach. The Tzuras HaPesach looks like a door. So Memela, it looks like the 3rd wall. That's the way to make the 3rd wall. That is the way Rava said his statement. But others learn that Rava meant to say you don't even need to be this to be half a tefach. Just make a Tzuras HaPesach. This is another idea. That means if you don't have a board that's a tefach, just use a kolshu. It could be like 1 inch. Right? Each side could be 1 inch, make a Tzuras HaPesach. That's good. In other words, Rava doesn't disagree with Rav Simon's idea. He just adds another way to do it. That's Rava's. That's one way to learn what Rava is saying. Another way to learn Rava is saying is Rava is strict. He requires not only what Rav Simon required, which was the board to be over here, plus a Tzuras HaPesach. So there's 2 ways to learn Rava. Either Rava said just I give you another idea, besides Rav Simon's way, just make a Tzuras HaPesach, or he required both, the tefach with the lavud plus the Tzuras HaPesach. Let's read it inside. Amar Rava. Rava has a 3rd opinion. The Eina Niteres Ela b'Tzuras HaPesach. You cannot kosher up a 3-walled sukkah unless you make a door frame, basically, a frame of a door. So now there's 2 ways to learn what Rava said. Others learned that Rava said, Amar Rava. Rava says, V'niteres name. The key word is name, b'Tzuras HaPesach. Rava just gave you another idea. You could use Rav Simon's idea, but you could also use the Tzuras HaPesach, which is a regular door frame. But others say Rava was very strict. Not only do you need Rav Simon's idea, Amar Rava, tzrichaname Tzuras HaPesach. You also need a Tzuras HaPesach. So it's a question what Rava did. Now the Gemara brings a story. Rav Ashi, Ashkechei Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi discovered that Rav Kahana, in his sukkah, the Ka'ave Tefach Soichek, he made the like Rav Simon did, the big Tefach, the Ka'ave Tzuras HaPesach, and he also did a Tzuras HaPesach. So he did both. That's like the 2nd version of Rava. Amalei, so Rav Ashi said, don't you hold that Rava only gave you another idea? That it could also work with a Tzuras HaPesach, but you don't need both. That's what Rav Ashi asked Rav Kahana. Amalei, so Rav Kahana said, no, ki'idach lishana de Rava, severely. I hold like the other language of Rava, that only way it works, the Amar Rava tzrichanami tzuras hapesach, that it also needs a tzuras hapesach, and that's why Rav Kahana's sukkah looked like this. It's amazing that they were maybe poor, or they couldn't get wood, so they did whatever they can to make a makeshift sukkah, or maybe it was just hot. So Rav Kahana's sukkah looked like this.
Bernard, quick question. So according to the Mikra, when we learned, we don't need these walls to be connected. As long as they're visible and there are 3 walls, that's fine. And then use different concepts
Right.
to create another wall. Is that what you're saying? Is that what's
That's great. They don't need to
Okay.
be connected. And here,
Okay.
but here they are connected, because loved means we view this as
Yeah.
if there's a wall. Right.
It's nicer to have that idea of connection, but you don't necessarily need it as long as you have 3 walls up.
That's correct.
And the three walls come from where? That it has to be 3?
Oh, where did we learn that it has to be 3? Sukkah, sukkah, sukkah.
Right.
That we learned
Because it
yesterday.
said it 3 times.
Right, 3 times.
Right.
Right. And one, actually,
Okay.
you knock off 1, but so that 1 don't count. But 1 sukkah was written with above, so that
Right, it
stands
was-
for 2 walls. And 1
Right.
sukkah was written without above, so it stands for 1 wall.
Right.
That was the
Okay.
opinion of the Ramah.
Okay. Okay.
Now, look at this picture over here. This picture, let's say this was a Rishus Harabim, okay? A Rishus Harabim. Would you be allowed to open your door and pick up the mail in front of your house and bring it into your house? No, because it's a Rishus Harabim. You're not allowed to carry from Rishus Harabim to Rishus Yachid. Comes along with this Rava with this massive Chiddush. And if you think about it, it's unbelievable. He's saying like this, on Sukkot, Shabbos and Sukkot, right? Shabbos, Chalamot, Sukkot, whatever it is. If you made a sukkah like this, it's kosher because you have 3 walls. 1, the door, I guess, will be counted as 2, and then this will be like your 3rd wall. So you can technically make a sukkah here. Comes along Rava on Shabbos and Sukkot, since this will work to make this a sukkah on the yontiv of Sukkot, so also it will allow you to carry here on Shabbos. Even though on a regular Shabbos you can't carry, on a Shabbos of Sukkot, you would be allowed to carry. So it's an interesting thing. Shabbos changes its din. It depends what Shabbos you are. You were always familiar that every Shabbos is the same. The halachas remain the same. That's not true. On Shabbos and Sukkot, we have a leniency that if you put a sukkah in front of your house with this, you're allowed to carry in the sukkah because this becomes a private domain. Since it works, that's what Rava said.
Bernard, it's nice to look at to try to get 3 walls here. How do you put a schach on something like that?
How do you put the schach on? What happens if you put 1 pole that holds up the schach over here? I don't know.
I mean, you need a schach. I don't know how you're going to get a kosher schach on something like that.
Maybe it could be suspended from the top of the wall here. You know, the schach could be connected or something with like wood to over here. You can just lift it up.
Okay.
The engineers would figure it out. But
I think it's more theoretical to learn that the halacha allows this to be a sukkah, and therefore even Shabbos you'd be allowed to carry. How you make schach, I guess that's not really what they're trying to figure out. But
yeah, I'm sure
it would be quite the balancing act.
Right. Well, if you really nail it down,
you could go to the door frame and put a pole in the middle.
We're always familiar with the flexible schach that bend. I'm sure in their countries they had schach that was straight as an arrow. So if you connected it on 1 wall, it could stay straight. We'll see more about that later. But Amarava, Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Migoy, since the Havia Doifin Le'inyan Shabbos, since you call it a wall on Shabbos, so Havia Doifin since you're calling it a wall on Shabbos, on Sukkot, so you call it a wall l'gabe hilchas Shabbos. So the Shabbos of Sukkot Chol Hamoed will have that leniency that you could carry there. So Eisvei Abaya asked a question on Rava, and he asked this question that mi amrina migoy. Would you say migoy? You told me that once it's good on Sukkot, you could use it on Shabbos. Do you say that concept? For Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, doifen Sukkah, kedoifen Shabbos. The halachas of the walls of a Sukkah have the halachas of the walls of a Shabbos. What does that mean? So that means like this. We've had this picture before. But you know that on Shabbos, this is a Rishus HaYachid. Why? Because you have all these poles up there, but since one pole is next to another pole less than 3 tefachim, all these poles become like a wall. So you could carry in this pen over here. And the same idea, if you have on the other side, where my pointer is, that if they're going horizontally, but there's less than 3 tefachim between each band, then it becomes a wall. Legabe Hilchas Shabbos. So now let's apply that to a sukkah. You can make a sukkah look like this. If in Eretz Yisrael, if you're hot, or Florida, you can make a sukkah look like this, where the walls go like this. And there's less than 3, obviously, between each row. Okay, less than 3 in the row. So the walls of the sukkah have a din like the walls on Shabbos. That's one thing the Brisa says, but that's not the question. Between one row and the next row, there should not be 3 tefachim. So the halachas of walls of sukkah are similar to the walls of Shabbos. Here's where the question becomes. The Brisa says, V'seira Shabbos al sukkah. A Shabbos has more strictness than sukkah. Why? Because on a regular Shabbos, even the Shabbos of Sukkot, every Shabbos, that's what the Brisa seems to apply. Every single Shabbos, even Shabbos and Sukkot, Shabbos ein in the terrace, ela ba'omed meruba ala paretz. A Shabbos that won't work if you have more open space than it only works if you have more closed space than open space. Masha ein kein b'sukkah, it could work. So what that means is, what the Bryce is saying is, this would not work on Shabbos because there's more open space than closed space. In other words, in order for something to be a wall on Shabbos, the Rabbanim required that besides Lovin and everything, there has to be more closed space than open space. So on Shabbos, this would not work, but on Sukkot, this would work. So basically, what the Brisa seems to say is that in this case, on Shabbos Sukkot, you wouldn't be allowed to carry in the Sukkah. And that's a biased question. You say Shabbos and Sukkot, Shabbos didn't have Masha'en came to Sukkot, it could work. So my love, don't you mean you say Shabbos to Sukkah, that the Shabbos of Sukkot is more strict than regular Sukkah, because Lagabe Sukkot, all the other days of Sukkot, that's considered a wall. But on Shabbos of Sukkot, it's not considered a wall. Lagabe Hilchas Shabbos, v'loy amrina migoy. And you don't say, since it works for Sukkah, it should work for Shabbos. So the Gemara says, no, not true. What the Brisa means is you say Shabbos to Alma al Shabbos to Sukkah. There's a strictness on a regular Shabbos than Shabbos of Sukkot. On a regular Shabbos, that wouldn't work. But on Shabbos of Sukkah, it would work. And it would say that since he's telling me that it's a wall, Lagabe Hilchas Sukkah, so on Shabbos that falls out on Sukkot, it would also be counted as a wall. So that's what we swung it into the Brisa. If this is correct, if this is the correct way of learning, listening name, let the Brisa say a reverse case. If you always say migoy, there's sometimes that you could say that it's a wall Lagabe Hilchas Shabbos, and normally it would not be called a wall Lagabe Hilchas Sukkah. And since Lagabe Shabbos, it's considered a wall, so even on Shabbos Sukkot, it should be considered a wall. Why? What's the case? Listen to Nami, let's list another case. You say a Sukkah de Alma Sukkah de Shabbos. That Sukkah, a regular Sukkah, has a strictness that it doesn't count as a wall on a Sukkah of Shabbos. The Ilu Sukkah de Alma, a regular Sukkah, Boya Tefach Shoichek. That in order for a Sukkah to become permitted, you need that the post has to be wide a tefach, at least wide a tefach, maybe more. Be'ilu Sukkah de Shabbos, loy boya tefach shoichik, v'sagi belechi. The Gemara is saying that on Shabbos of Sukkot, you're not going to even require a tefach shoichik. You could even use anything. Look at this case over here. Let's see if you have it over here. Here's Paras Meruba al Oimid. Here, this case over here. What the Gemara is saying is that, look at this. You remember the old Mavi that's open from both ends? So the Gemara is going to say here is that there was a statement said that on Sukkot, you could put schach over here and just add a lechi over here. Because a lechi means a thin 1 inch 1-inch post, not even a tefach. On Shabbos, that would work because midoraisa, even a lechi would make this a reshus hayachid because you would count 3 walls. Midoraisa, this is called 3 walls. Midrabanan, we require a back wall and the lechi. Remember, midrabanan, we always require the back wall and the lechi. But midoraisa, this would be considered a wall, even though it's open from both ends. So since midoraisa, this would be counted as a reshus hayachid. That means if someone threw from the reshus harabim in here, you'd chayiv. Therefore, you can make schach over it. Since it midoraisa, this mavoi, that open mavoi, is considered reshus hayachid. Therefore, you could put schach on that. And so you see that would work on Shabbos. So the Gemara is saying on Shabbos of Sukkot, this should also work. That's what the Gemara is saying, that since it works on Shabbos of Sukkot, that should work as well. So in other words, what the Gemara is asking is, let's give me another case where something would work on Shabbos and therefore it makes it kosher for a sukkah. And how come the Brisa doesn't mention that case? So the Gemara says, you say, if you put schach on an open alleyway, mobi is an alleyway, sheyesh loy lechi, that you put one tiny post, not even a tefach, it's kosher. So you say that why don't you say the same idea? Since it becomes a reshus hayachid for Shabbos, so therefore it should be counted as a sukkah as well. You can make sukkah over there. So if the Brisa holds of this concept of migoy, mention that case as well. So the Gemara says, "Hahu like itzrachalei." The Brisa does not need to mention that because the Brisa said, "Hashta mikilta lechamirta aminim." The Brisa already told you from if something is counted as a wall on Sukkos, which is the lighter of the two. Sukkos is the lighter than Shabbos. Shabbos is more stricter, right? So if something is counted as a wall for Sukkot, you say for Shabbos it works as a wall. So it doesn't have to tell you that if something nechamirta lekilta like kolshkein. Certainly, if something is considered on Shabbos a wall, certainly it would be considered a wall lagabe sukkah. That's what you don't need to tell me this concept of sikach agabe movish yesh lechi. It's kosher. Of course, it's kosher because since Shabbos it's considered a wall. Huadim, the Rabbanan will say you can make it into a sukkah, but certainly it works. But the chiddush of the Brisa is that something that is generally wouldn't be considered a wall on Shabbos, since it's considered a wall lagabe hilchas sukkah, so we consider it a wall lagabe hilchas Shabbos. Gufa, Amar Rava. Rava made a statement before. We just saw this. Sikach agabe movish yesh lechi kashera. If you put schach on top of an open alleyway, and you put a lechi. A lechi is not a tefach. A lechi is a very thin string. A lechi could be, a flat board, right? Kashera. It's kosher for sukkah. Why? Because since midoraisa, that open movi can turn into a reshus hayachid because of that lechi can now make it also like a 3-walled sukkah. You can put schach on top. Okay? That's one statement of Rava. Rava said, Sikach agabe pasi birois keshera. Pasi birois are these double twin posts. Remember the picture over here? Imagine the well over here. And they were twin posts that went, that's called pasi birois, if you remember. If you put schach on top of that, it becomes a regular sukkah. Now, remember, in Eruvin, when we allowed you to carry, it was only the animals that were allowed to carry over. Imagine this without the schach. Only the animals were allowed to take water from this well, but humans were not allowed to carry. It was a heter for to be able to make a 1 amma, corner piece as the walls over here. So since legabe hilchas Shabbos we allowed you to carry, so once it's a wall legabe hilchas Shabbos, legabe hilchas sukkah, we can consider it like good enough for a wall, and it's as if you have a 4-walled sukkah. That was another chiddush of Rava. He told you 2 chiddushim. So the Gemara says to Tzricha, why do I need both novel ideas from Rava? If you'd only tell you the first statement of the case of the Mavoi with the open alleyway, it has 2 normal walls, because at the end of the day, this is a normal wall, and that's a normal wall. So you have two normal walls, and lechi, okay, Rava, you could say your statement. Ava gabe pasi birois, the lake is stay the forest ma'al yasa. There's no two normal walls over here. They're just small corner pieces over here. They drew it very big over here, but imagine it's smaller. It could be a lot smaller than this. It's a small little piece, a double post that goes one direction and the other direction. I might think schach wouldn't work over there. So that's why Rava had to tell you the second chidush. If he only told you the case of pasi birois that it's kosher for a sukkah, because at the end, because there we should be ikashem about the funnels. You have basically four walls over there, albeit corner posts, but each corner post is two walls, so you have four walls basically. One each side has like something over here. But the case of the over here, I might think skach doesn't work because you don't have four walls over here. You just have two. That's what he says. The lake is shame abar the funnels. You don't even have a name of four walls. So therefore, I would think that it wouldn't work. Kamash Milan, it works. If you only told me those two cases, because that you can make a sukkah that way, because michamir telekilta, you're saying since it's a wall lagabe hilcha Shabbos, you say it's a wall lagabe hilcha sukkah. Avo, but the case of the original case that we started off, where the door opened up into this open area, this case, I might think it doesn't work because you're telling me since it's a lagabe sukkah, it's a wall. You should say it's also a wall lagabe hilcha Shabbos. That's why Rava had to tell you all three cases. I wouldn't say, I might think not to say that just because it's a wall lagabe hilcha sukkah, it should not be a wall lagabe hilcha Shabbos. It wouldn't work. Tzricha, it works. So let's just review. Three things Rava said. You can make a sukkah over here because since lagabe hilcha sukkah, we call this a wall. Huadin lagabe hilcha Shabbos, we call it a wall, and therefore you can carry in this. Then Rava said the case of the movui, if you had a lechi, which is this case over here, an open alleyway, you could just put a thin wall over here, a thin lechi over here, not even a tefach, and make schach. And then the third case that he said over here is the case of the pasi birois, so you could put schach this way as well, and it all works for kosher sukkahs. Okay.
Bernard, how does Rava align with the halacha Moshe Sinai that the third wall has to be a tefach?
With the third wall has to be a tefach. That's a great question, but I guess because since in Hilchas Shabbos, the Torah says that it's a wall, because the Torah says in Hilchas Shabbos, midrabanan you're not allowed to carry in this open mavui. Right. Imagine there's no schach here, but midoraisa, if you would throw a ball from the Rishus Harabim into that open alleyway, if it had a lechi, this lechi midoraisa would turn it into even though it's not a tefach, it would turn it into a Rishus HaYachid. So comes along Rav and says, since midoraisa on Shabbos, it would turn it into a Rishus HaYachid. So for Lagabe Hilchas Sukkos, you do not require a tefach. You're right. It will override the halacha l'maishu sinai that to make a third wall you need a tefach. It would override it and say this Shabbos you don't need a tefach over here. You're right. It will override it.
Is the definition for halacha that a lechi means a wall, or a lechi is a sign that they're
excellent.
Because if it means wall, then it makes sense. Then a little piece is definition, it's a wall, and then therefore halacha Moshe Sinai, we have three walls.
Yes.
But if it just means it's an indicator of something, then it doesn't mean wall, and therefore how does that make a third wall based on his question?
So the Gemara in the beginning of Eruvin, when we started Eruvin, in the first three dafim of Eruvin discussed this, that what is a lechi? There's some opinions say that it's just a reminder. Don't carry. When you walk out of the movie, make sure you empty your pockets because you're walking into Rishus Harabim. You're right. But there was another opinion that the lechi actually is the fourth wall. And that's what the lechi is. So
it was all based on what the base. I think they took it from the source of based on Big Dutch, right?
Right. So we're saying.
So we're going with the opinion that lechi was a wall. You're right.
And therefore that answers his question of how do you rationalize that it should be a third wall, because it's a third wall.
It's a third wall. And we're going with that opinion.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. I should have brought that up. It's very good. New concept, and we'll finish off over here. The Mishnah said that there's more sun than shade light. The sukkah is possible. You need if it's sparsely schach, and that's why you have more sun. Then that's a problem. But if you don't have enough walls and you have more sunlight coming in through the walls, then it's not a problem, because the main thing is that it should be covered with enough schach that you get more shade and sun. But if you have, let's say, a sukkah that looks like this, again, if you have the sukkah that looking like this, even though more sun is going to come in through the walls, that's okay. Because as long as you have enough schach to make it shady, it doesn't have to be physically more shady. That's good. That's according to the Tanakama. Comes along, Rabbi Yashia has a new opinion. He holds all these things with the walls don't work. Rabbi Yashia, I'm an af machmas defoners. Even the walls have to be so dark that no shade comes in. Even the walls. So I don't think he would even allow a plexiglass wall. Rabbi Yashia is very strict. So Rabbi Yema bar Shlamya b'shmei Dabaya, my time with Rabbi Yashia. Why does Rabbi Yashia say that the walls have to be like schach, that now not allowing any sunlight come in? It has to be real walls. Tiksiv, because Rabbi Yashia holds, over the Arim that protected, that divided the Kodesh to the Kodesh Kodashim. Remember, there was a curtain, right? The curtain that separated the Kodesh Kodashim from the rest of the sanctuary. And the Torah calls it a sakoisa. You should make a schach, a protection on it. So for the Gemara, proiches mechitza, the proiches is just a partition, not a covering. Because kari rachmana schacha, and the Torah calls it like a cover, like a roof. So from here is a hint that even the walls have to have the same din as schach. And just like schach has to be really covered, that means that it should not allow any sunlight in. So also the walls should be covered, should be made up so thick that it should not allow any sunlight to come in. Alma, so we see Rabbi Yashi is the opinion, mechitza kischach ba'inem. Mechitzas have to be like the schach. It's an outcast of an opinion over here. Rabbanan says you can't learn that from that pasuk. The Torah just requires that the curtain should be bent over a little bit so it should look like schach, but not that every partition has a din like schach. So again, the Chachamim hold that this is kosher, of course, even though a lot of sunlight will come in, it's kosher. And you can't learn from the pasuk of Sakoisa as Al-Aron Esabraikas any halachas. Amar Abaya made a statement. He said, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, for Rabbi Yoshia, and Rabbi Yehuda is a new Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi. It's not Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, it's Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Gamliel, Ubei Shammai, Rabbi Lezer, all these Tanoim, the Acherim is another name for a mayor. And the reason why we call Acherim Rameir is because Rabbi Meir had a Rebbe that went off the derech called Elisha, and he still continued to learn Torah from him. And anytime he aligned himself with his opinion, with his, we'll call it the Reform Rabbi Elisha ben Avua, so we call him Acherim. Kula Svirlu. All these Tanoim, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Tanoim hold that Sukkah diras kaveva be'inim. Sukkah has to be not just a temporary dwelling, it has to be like a house, like a permanent dwelling. A sukkah has to be permanently. So how do you see that? Rebbe's opinion is the Tanya Rebbe holds Rebbe's opinion is that a sukkah has to be 4 amas by 4 amas. That means it has to be 8 feet by 8 feet at least. So you see that Rebbe is very strict. We always say a sukkah should be 7 tefachim. According to Rebbe, a sukkah has to be large like a house. So Rebbe's of the opinion you have to build a sukkah, very permanent structure. Rabbi Yashia Hada Amram. Rabbi Yashia also felt that a sukkah has to be more permanent because you see his opinion of the walls of the sukkah cannot allow sunlight. So it must be Rabbi Yashia also holds that a sukkah has to be like a house. Rabbi Yehuda said it's okay to build a sukkah like a house because we see in our Mishnah, the Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Sukkah Shigvoy L'Malam Chaf Alma Pesula, Rabbi Yehuda Machsher. Rabbi Yehuda gave a hechsher that it's kosher to make a sukkah that's 40 feet high. And when you make a structure that's 40 feet high, it's more permanent structure. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda said it's okay to make a sukkah as a dires keva, like a permanent structure. Again, Rabbi Yehuda is with that opinion. Rab Shimon also required a sukkah to be very permanent. The Tanya, because Rab Shimon holds that you actually need 4 walls. One brisa says, the Tanakama says, Beis kil chosam begimel afil tefach. Rab Shimon holds you need 4 walls. Gimel kil chosam bedalet afil tefach. You need the 4th wall, although it could be only a tefach, but you need 3 strong walls and 1 4th wall. And the idea of Rab Shimon, as we learned yesterday, is because you need 4 walls to protect you from the elements from coming into the sukkah. So we see that Rab Shimon holds that a sukkah is a diras keva, not a permanent dwelling. Rabbi Gamliel also is of an opinion that a sukkah has to be permanent. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. A Brisa taught us a person made a sukkah on top of a wagon, so it's bumpy, right? You have a big wagon and you put a sukkah on top of it, so it's not permanent, it's not fixed into the ground. Or you put it on top of a ship. On a cruise ship, you put up a sukkah. Now the winds of a cruise ship could potentially blow it down. So Rabbi Gamliel Paisel, Rabbi Gamliel says it's pasul because it's not a permanent structure, and therefore Rabbi Gamliel is also of the opinion that a sukkah has to be more permanent.
So fast. So
Rabbi Kiva holds. Rabbi Kiva machsher. Rabbi Kiva says it's Rabbi Kiva machsher. Rabbi Kiva says it's kosher. Okay, fine. Beis Shammai, where do you see that Rabbi Shammai requires a permanent structure? The Tanan, Misha Haya Roishe Veruba Basukah V'Shulchana B'Soich Habayis, Beis Shammai Paislin Ubeis Hillel Machshirim. Beis Shammai was of the opinion, let's see if we have a picture, that in order to make a kosher sukkah, you have to be able to fit into the sukkah your chair and table. That means it has to be 7 tfachim large. Now, Beis Hillel says that no, machshirim, even if you could only get your chair into the sukkah and most of your body, even the sukkah is 6 tvachim, it's also kosher. So since Beis Shammai requires a bigger shear, it seems that Beis Shammai holds that a sukkah is more of a permanent structure. And then the Mishnah says, the Bren Rabbi says there's one more opinion. Rabbi Eliezer also holds a sukkah should be a permanent structure. The Tanan hoiset siragosik mitzrif oishesam chalakaisel. Rabbi Eliezer poisel if he she'ein lo gag v'chacham machshirim. One, if you make a sukkah that looks like this, that's up against the wall, even though you potentially have, and you put up another wall, I guess you put it up against the wall, you made it like a teepee. It doesn't look like a house. So Rabbi Eliezer says it's puzzle. Again, it doesn't have a roof. Said it could be used as a sukkah. So Rabbi Eliezer is very strict. Sukkah. And one more opinion. Acherim, Titania, Acherim Oimrim. Rabbi Meir said, sukkah hoasuya keshoiva. Pesula lefisha ein la zabias. A sukkah that's made like a hot tub. It's made like this. So even though it doesn't have cornered walls, it doesn't look like a house. And so therefore, it's not a kosher sukkah. So basically, what Abaya just said is that you have 8 tanoim that hold sukkah is mostly supposed to be built as a permanent structure. But we don't hold like that. We hold that a sukkah is supposed to be as a temporary structure. And he brought proofs from all the different statements of these Arumonoim. Rabbi Yashir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, all these people hold that it's just permanent structure. Okay.
Yeshikor.
Okay, very good.
Very good.
Take care. Good night.